I was rushing home for my boyfriend's birthday when the accident happened. I died, just as he brought his white moonlight home. They kissed on my couch, ate my dumplings. Where's Melina? Away on business, he said. He never knew. I was already gone. The day I died, my boyfriend brought his beloved first love back to our home. They kissed shamelessly on the couch I bought, ate the celery dumplings I made by hand, and played with the game console I had gifted him. One afternoon, she, his so-called white moonlight, asked casually, "Where's Melina?" Thomas replied calmly, "She had a fight with me a few days ago and left on a business trip." He didn't even realize I was dead. It had happened on his birthday. I got into a car accident on the way home and died instantly. My soul lingered, unable to let go, just wanting to see him one last time. That's when I saw him bringing Catherine White into the home we once shared. In the dim lighting, Catherine looked flushed and fragile, clearly tipsy, draped loosely against his chest. Thomas. Thomas. He gently steadied her, brushed her messy hair aside, and softly responded to her every call. Thomas, who was always distant with others, only ever softened for her. Even though I had mentally prepared myself, watching it unfold was still like being stabbed in the heart. I had noticed his growing coldness since learning of Catherine's divorce. He came home less and less, his warmth toward me fading. Later, I found out Catherine's ex-husband had gone bankrupt and run off with embezzled funds. After the divorce, she discovered she was pregnant. The debt collectors came knocking. The stress nearly caused her to miscarry. Thomas had been by her side at the hospital all along. Our final fight started when he said he wanted to bring her into our home. She and her parents helped me when I was at my lowest. "I can't turn my back on her," he said. Tears welled in my eyes. "Is that really the only reason?" He didn't respond right away. Instead, he stubbed out his cigarette and said, "I promise to marry you, Melina. Why are you so anxious?" He knew the answer, he just pretended not to. That night, I finally broke down. I told him I wanted to break up. His face turned cold. Without a word, he carried me into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and asked, "Do you even understand what you're saying?" I trembled, arms wrapped around myself. He approached, unbuttoning his shirt, and kissed me, roughly, punishingly. "Don't ever say that again, Melina," he warned. As the cold water rained down and his breath burned against my neck, he whispered, "Catherine's just staying until the police catch her ex. Once that's done, she's leaving." Then, softly in my ear, "There's nothing between us anymore." Struggling to breathe beneath him, I closed my eyes and muttered through clenched teeth, "Fine. I'll only accept it if I'm dead." And then, I really did die. And he really did bring her home. I watched as Thomas gently laid Catherine on the couch and wiped her face with a warm towel. "You're pregnant. You shouldn't be drinking," he said gently, in the same voice he once used to scold her for not focusing in class. Catherine groaned about her headache. Thomas chuckled, helped her sit up, and gently massaged her temples, fingers gliding to the back of her ears. It was such a tender, familiar scene. My chest tightened, and suddenly, my heart beat again. I was thrown back into a memory. When we'd just graduated college, Thomas's grandmother had passed, and Catherine, forced by her parents, married someone else. During those dark days, I had stayed by Thomas's side. Half a year later, he finally accepted my love. When he started his business, he often came home drunk. I'd stay up, take care of him, make him soup, and wipe his face. One morning, dark circles under my eyes, I caught him staring at me. He sighed, pulled me into his lap, and massaged my shoulders. Surprised, I joked, "Thomas, you're not allowed to do this for anyone else again, okay?" I hadn't meant to say it. But he chuckled and whispered, "Okay." He said, "Okay. But now I understand, Catherine never counted as anyone else. I was just a placeholder. She was the one he truly loved." A sudden wave of nausea swept over me. I couldn't even bear to watch him massage her. What would I do if they kissed? Or worse? I panicked and ran toward the door. But the second I touched the knob, searing pain shot through me. Even worse than the moment I died. Before I could scream, something yanked me back. After a few desperate attempts, I stood there, drenched in sweat and trembling, the awful truth sinking in. I couldn't leave the house. Or more accurately, I couldn't leave Thomas. I crumpled under the weight of it. I watched in silence as Thomas finished tending to Catherine. Just as he stood up, she hooked her arm around his neck. Their eyes met. "Thomas, do you still love me?" she asked. He stared at her. "I hate you," he said. Her face paled. Then he cupped her cheek, thumb grazing her skin. "But I've never forgotten you." I scoffed bitterly. Catherine smiled, eyes glinting with something new. "And what about Melina? She's been by your side for 5 years. What do you feel for her?" Thomas froze. He opened his mouth, then fell silent. The room went still. Catherine's smile faltered, then sharpened with suspicion. She leaned forward and kissed him. Thomas stiffened, then quickly gave in. He pulled her into his lap, deepened the kiss, one hand around her waist, the other cradling her head. I turned away, nausea rising. I clutched my mouth, afraid the grief would physically spill out. Thomas, Catherine breathed, he left me. Please don't leave me too. I can't be alone. I know you only feel guilt and gratitude toward her. But the one you really love is me. She kissed his collarbone and reached for his buttons. Thomas abruptly grabbed her wrist. No. His voice was icy, his eyes even colder. Even I, a disembodied spirit, shuddered. Catherine blinked in shock. Is it because of Melina? I stared, heart pounding. Thomas was quiet for a long time. Then he looked down and said evenly, I have a girlfriend. This isn't right for either of us. Catherine didn't argue. She smiled faintly. I'll wait for you. And I understood everything. He didn't refuse her out of love for me. He just didn't want Catherine to bear the shame of being the other woman. He protected her that carefully. I laughed, empty and soundless, until the tears came, heavy and endless. After she fell asleep, Thomas went out to the balcony to smoke. He stood alone in the dark, the ember of his cigarette his only light. His expression was blank, but the way he rubbed the filter with his thumb betrayed his agitation. I hovered nearby, watching. He had just kissed the woman he loved. Why did he still seem so unsettled? Oh, right. We hadn't officially broken up yet. Maybe that's all it was, frustration. Then his phone lit up. He grabbed it quickly, eyes locked on the screen. A second later, I saw the flicker of disappointment. I floated closer, peeking over his shoulder. And froze. He had opened our chat. We hadn't spoken since that last fight. The last message I sent him read, Hey Thomas, your birthday's in 7 days. What do you want this year? Maybe he was too busy. Maybe he was with Catherine in the hospital. Either way. He never replied. Thomas's fingers were scrolling absent-mindedly, refreshing our chat window again and again, as if hoping a new message might suddenly appear. I didn't know how to respond. I stood there, stunned, when Thomas suddenly typed something. Thomas, it's 11:30. In that moment, I understood. It was 11:30 p.m., his birthday was almost over. For the past 5 years, I'd never missed his birthday. Every year, I made him longevity noodles and celery dumplings. But this year, I hadn't even said, Happy birthday. And now, I never would again. From this year onward, for the rest of forever, I would never get the chance. Because I was already dead. Thomas remained on the balcony for half an hour, his body stiff from the cold. When he finally came back in, his face was unreadable. He stared at his phone a few seconds longer, then tossed it onto the couch in frustration. He walked to the fridge, opened the freezer, and took out a bag of celery dumplings, the ones I made last time. Without a word, he thawed and cooked them, then sat at the dining table. His head was lowered, silently eating, one bite at a time. Smoke lingered faintly around him, making his expression look even colder, more distant. Watching him eat those dumplings, a strange thought crossed my mind, maybe Thomas did care about me. Just a little. It surprised me. But then it all made sense. Technically, today wasn't even Thomas's actual birthday. His real birthday was a week earlier. But 5 years ago, his grandmother passed away on that day, and Catherine left him. After that, he refused to celebrate it. It was me who suggested shifting the date. Every year, I'd be the one to get excited and insist on celebrating it. I grew up in a welfare home, where my birthday was the one day I felt special. I wanted to give him that feeling too. The first year I spent with him, I secretly learned to play his favorite video game just to surprise him. I planned to pull an all-nighter and finish it with him, but by 2 a.m. I fell asleep with my head on his lap. When I woke up, he was still there, arms folded, gazing down at me with a faint smirk. Pulled an all-nighter, huh, he teased. The second year, I cooked a full table of food. I cut my fingers several times, and only the longevity noodles and dumplings turned out edible. He ate every bite. And for someone so quiet, he even complimented the dumplings more than once. Puffed with pride, I grinned. You've got a bad heart. Celery helps lower blood pressure and regulate heart rate. I researched the taste and nutrition for you. Thomas stared at me for a long while. Then he asked, Melina, why are you so good to me? I smiled. Because I like you. I really do. Before I could say anything else, he cupped my chin and kissed me. That was the first time he showed real emotion, raw and burning. That night, we ended up in bed. Both of us inexperienced, awkward at first, but later, he held me close, as if he'd suddenly figured it all out. In the dim light, his deep, unreadable eyes reflected my tear-streaked face. It lasted until the middle of the night, slow, intense, and unforgettable. Shamelessness had its rewards. By his 3rd and 4th birthdays, Thomas no longer objected to my celebrations. Looking back on those 5 years of shared moments and love, I couldn't help but think. Surely they left a mark on his heart. Even if just a little. A metallic clink pulled me out of my thoughts. Thomas had dropped his spoon. He didn't seem to notice. Out of habit, I bent down to pick it up. But my hand passed right through it. I froze. Another hand picked it up instead. Catherine. She looked at the spoon, then at Thomas. "What are you eating?" she asked softly. I looked at my own hand. It was fading, translucent, barely holding form. I used to have beautiful hands too. I could cook a full meal, beat any game. Now, I couldn't touch a thing. Catherine picked up another spoon and casually stirred his bowl. "What's in this?" "Smells weird." Thomas frowned faintly. "Celery." She made a face and tilted her head. "Why did Melina think today was your birthday?" Thomas stiffened slightly. She smiled lightly. "Your phone was on the couch, I looked through your chat with her." Then she added with a sly tone, "I didn't expect your lock screen password to still be the date we first met." Thomas said nothing. I couldn't see his expression, but my chest ached. I remembered once jokingly asking him to change his password to the day we got together. He'd refused. Now I knew why. It was always because of her. Catherine pressed again. "Well? Why did Melina think today was your birthday?" I stared at her coldly. Thomas had once promised, this would remain our secret. Then his voice came, flat and quiet. 5 years ago, a lot of bad things happened on my real birthday, so she suggested moving it. And every year after that, she celebrated it for me in her own way. I bit down hard on the tip of my tongue, the bitter taste of blood filling my mouth. I wanted to laugh, at myself. Catherine fell quiet for a moment. "She really treated you well," she said. "These dumplings, she made them just for your birthday." She tucked me in just so you could keep your promise to her?" Thomas didn't answer. Silence filled the room. Then Catherine picked up a dumpling. "I want to try one," she said. "No." I screamed, voice hoarse, cracking. But no one heard me. I lunged for her spoon, my hand passed straight through. Thomas's eyes darkened. He reached out, grabbed her wrist, and said in a low voice, "Catherine." She met his gaze head-on. "I want to eat it." Then, clearly, deliberately, "Thomas, from now on, I'll be the one spending every birthday with you." She was forcing a choice. His jaw tightened. His expression flickered. And then, slowly, he let go. Catherine took a bite. I watched, numb, as tears spilled uncontrollably. The pain pierced deeper than I thought possible, like blades slicing through me. It wasn't just a dumpling. In the days that followed, I lingered quietly around the house. I thought I'd become numb. But something shifted. Thomas seemed different. He grew colder toward Catherine. They played video games, but there was no more closeness. In fact, he seemed to avoid touching her. Then one day, Catherine asked, "By the way, where's Melina?" Thomas paused before replying, "We fought a few days ago. She left on a business trip." Catherine smiled. "She hasn't texted in days. Maybe she's breaking up with you." His eyes darkened. "That's impossible." He instinctively pulled out his phone and opened our chat. He stared at the empty screen, and for the first time, I saw real unease in his eyes. He still didn't know. I was dead. And I suddenly wondered. What would he do when he found out? The next day, a package arrived. Inside was the engagement ring he gave me. A month earlier, we'd been at a restaurant. In the middle of dinner, he suddenly stood up, pulled out a ring, and knelt before me. He looked sharp in his tailored suit, yet his fingers were pale with nervousness. People clapped and cheered as he smiled at me, gaze warm and fiery. "Melina, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my cheeks. I reached out, trembling, and let him slip the ring on. That night, I kissed him again and again beneath the flickering light. The shadows danced until dawn. I was an orphan. After being adopted, my foster parents had a biological son the next year. Soon after, they sent me back to the orphanage. Their excuse? Something about me stealing. Maybe they were right, maybe taking my little brother's leftover chicken drumstick out of hunger was stealing. At school, when class funds went missing, fingers pointed at me. But Thomas, he stood up for me. And from that moment on, he became my entire world. Later, I was adopted again, this time by a kind couple who weren't wealthy, but treated me with warmth. Still, I remained cautious, always holding back. During the years when I should have been growing, I only dared to fill my bowl halfway at each meal. And just when I finally opened my heart to them, they died in a car accident, on their way to attend my parent-teacher conference. I returned to the orphanage once again. No one came to adopt me after that. My name was Melina. But peace had never truly belonged to me. All I ever wanted was a real family. So when Thomas proposed, I thought, this is it. This time, I'll finally have one. But then Catherine came back. Her life had fallen apart, and the first person she ran to wasn't her family. It was Thomas. And my fiancé, dutiful and loyal, chose to help her. He even wanted to bring her home so he could take care of her. After that terrible fight, I applied for a business trip and left for Hangzhou. I spent a week thinking it over. Then I mailed the engagement ring back to him. It was over. And today, Thomas received that ring. The moment he opened the package, his face darkened like a thundercloud. His eyes were covered in a thin frost that wouldn't melt. He started calling, messaging nonstop. Demanding answers. As cigarette after cigarette burned down in his hand, his features turned sharp and cold, the frustration in his expression nearly boiling over. One message after another. All undeliverable. Finally, the cigarette pack was empty. He lowered his eyes and whispered, voice hoarse and barely audible, Melina. Are you really leaving me? Yes. I already had. Completely. Irrevocably. Now you're free to be with Catherine, just like you wanted. I whispered the words, even though I knew he couldn't hear me. And then, a strange thought crept into my mind. I'd always been decisive. If I had already returned the ring, if I'd already ended things. Why had I rushed back for his birthday? I tried to remember. But something felt missing. Something important. I just couldn't place it. Around the same time, I started noticing changes in Thomas. He would zone out more often. Late at night, working in his study, Catherine would bring him coffee. Without looking up, he'd murmur, Melina, it's late. Go rest. Catherine would freeze. And so would he. He'd quickly apologize, rubbing his brow like he was trying to erase the slip. Then he'd sit there for the next hour, unmoving, his proposal untouched. While Catherine stood beside him, expression darkening by the minute. The next day, Catherine went into his bedroom to tidy up. Whether by accident or design, she quietly boxed up many of my belongings. She even broke the Lego set Thomas and I had built together. When he saw the broken pieces, he finally snapped. Don't touch these. He pushed her hand away and began slowly, piece by piece, putting the Lego model back together. Catherine stood silently at his side, watching. And I began to notice more. Every time Thomas was near Catherine, he seemed distracted. He would pause at the sight of the sunflowers I had planted on the balcony. He would freeze in front of the shirts I bought him still hanging in the closet. He would quietly watch the goldfish I used to feed. Even when chatting, if Catherine said the word and, spoken with the same inflection I used to use, he would fall silent. I floated in the air, watching as Catherine's face grew visibly pale. It wasn't just her. I saw it too. Thomas was slowly waking up to his own feelings. I narrowed my eyes at him, sitting tipsy on the couch, brows furrowed and cheeks flushed. He was on the phone with John. So? Who do you want, Melina or Catherine? John asked. Thomas was quiet for a long time. Melina already broke up with me. So? Catherine, then? Thomas's frown deepened instinctively. John must have sensed something. Thomas, the heart is small. It can only truly hold one person. Go find Melina. Thomas didn't reply. He just lowered his head, lightly running his fingers over the engagement ring. After a long pause. Okay. I stared at him in silence. If this had been before, I might have been happy to hear that. But now, it was too late. I was dead. The ache in my chest swelled like a tide of ants, gnawing through my heart, unbearable and endless. Unspoken emotions surged and tangled, I could barely breathe. John urged Thomas to send Catherine back to her parents. Thomas agreed, even booking a ticket to the city where I had gone for work. That day, he looked ready to talk to her. But as soon as he stepped through the door, Catherine came out of the kitchen with a bowl of soup in her hands. She had cooked dinner, an entire spread. Even made fresh celery dumplings. I shouldn't have forced you to choose that day, she said, voice trembling. I was just scared of losing you. I didn't want to marry either, but my mom threatened suicide. Even during those 5 years. Not a day went by that I didn't think of you. She wore my apron. Her tear-streaked face looked soft and sorrowful as she gazed up at him. Her eyes were red, like they'd been brushed with rouge. I know your heart's with her now. But I can wait. Please, don't send me away. She wrapped her arms around his waist, rested her cheek against his chest, and clutched his shirt tightly. Just a little longer. When she comes back, I'll leave. Okay? Thomas didn't say anything. But he didn't push her away either. He sighed and gently wiped her tears. Don't cry anymore. It's bad for the baby. He gave in. Again. A dull pain rippled through me, bitter and heavy. How much do you have to love someone to endure disappointment over and over again? For 5 years, I gave him everything, every ounce of love, every drop of warmth, just to barely earn a place in his life. And she? She cried, and he caved. Later, Thomas told John he'd let Catherine stay a little longer. John looked conflicted. What if Melina finds out? Aren't you afraid she'll leave for good? Catherine and I are just friends, Thomas said coolly. By the time Melina comes back, Catherine will be gone. She won't know. John sighed and didn't press further. I watched it all unfold, face calm, but inside. Anticipation churned. I wanted to see Thomas's face when he finally learned I was dead. In the following days, Thomas kept his promise. He stayed with Catherine, but never crossed the line. They interacted like friends. And I kept trying, desperately, to remember. Why had I rushed back for his birthday? There was something important. Something I had forgotten. A strange intuition told me, if I remembered it, I might finally be able to let go. My soul might finally be free. But each time I tried, my head throbbed violently with pain. Then one afternoon, Thomas took Catherine shopping. They passed by a baby store. Catherine stopped in front of the window, then pulled him inside. She picked up a tiny pink dress and held it to her cheek. If it's a girl, I'll dress her in the cutest things, she said sweetly. Thomas, do you prefer sons or daughters? Daughters, he said softly. His lips curved slightly as he looked at the display. His eyes, touched by golden light, seemed gentle. Melina likes girls, he murmured. Then added, but I'd love whatever she gave me. I stood frozen. And then, everything came rushing back. Like a dam breaking. Images flooded my mind in a wild, uncontrollable surge. I collapsed, unmoving. Then I started to laugh. And cry. And laugh again. My hand trembled as I placed it over my belly. I remembered. I remembered why I came back. Why I wanted to celebrate one last birthday. Why I was willing to give us one more chance. I was pregnant. I'd gotten the results and stayed up all night thinking about it. And in the end, I decided I wanted to tell him. Face to face. The day before Thomas's birthday, I traveled overnight to make it back in time. I wanted to tell him in person. To give him the news as his birthday gift. In the car, I rested my hand gently on my stomach, imagining how he might react. Would he laugh? Probably not. He was always composed, with that cool expression of his. At most, he'd offer a faint smile and say seriously, Melina, I'm truly happy you're pregnant. Would he look forward to this child as much as I did? I believed he would. The night he proposed, he had whispered softly against my ear, Melina, after we're married, let's have a child. I've always known, you want a big family. He was right. I did. A big, joyful family, that had always been my dream. How did Thomas know me so well? The thought made me smile. The driver caught a glimpse of my reflection in the rearview mirror and asked what I was smiling about. I didn't answer, just told him to focus on the road. It was pouring outside, and safety came first. The drive was uneventful. I resisted the urge to message Thomas and opened Weibo instead. That's when I noticed a new follower. Catherine. I tapped into her profile. What I saw were all photos of Thomas. Images of him by her side at the hospital, caring for her during her pregnancy. Moments of them slowly reigniting the flame between them. Like a pair of newlyweds awaiting their first child. The shots hurt, but with you here, I'm not afraid. Photo, Thomas's calm side profile, their hands clasped tightly. After everything, you're still the one who treats me best. Photo, Thomas, the infamous clean freak, peeling shrimp for her. Last night, you fell asleep beside me. I stole a kiss, I knew you weren't really sleeping. No photo this time. But Thomas had liked the post. My breath caught. My heart seized. It felt like blood rushed to my head all at once. How much pain must one endure in a lifetime to see something like this? I didn't want to look anymore. And as if fate took pity on me, it didn't let me. Near a cliff, a red freight truck lost control and came crashing straight toward us. The car I was in swerved, skidded, and tumbled off the cliff. Before exploding on impact. I had rushed back with joy and hope in my heart. Only to die with hatred and despair. The trauma had buried the memory. But the fury tethered my soul to Thomas. It wasn't love that bound me to him. It was hate. When I died, carrying his child. Where was he? With someone else. Caring for her. And her child. Perhaps sensing something, Thomas, who had just been talking to Catherine, suddenly furrowed his brows and looked around. Of course, he saw nothing. Then, his phone rang. John's voice came through, tight and trembling. Thomas, I need to tell you something. Please stay calm. I've got a friend on the traffic force. There was a serious accident recently. A pregnant woman and the driver both died. It took days to ID her. That woman was Melina. I'd imagined countless times how Thomas would react if he learned I was gone. Now, I was seeing it with my own eyes. Just moments ago, he had been smiling and laughing with Catherine. Now, he stilled, brows furrowed in confusion. Don't joke like that, he said. It's real. Thomas froze. Then suddenly barked, John, this isn't funny. A week ago, her taxi collided with a truck and went over a cliff. The car exploded. Only fragments remained. Since no one reported a pregnant woman missing, it took the police a week. John's voice broke. A whole week to confirm it was Melina through DNA testing. Thomas's face changed. His body stiffened like stone. Thomas, did you know she was pregnant? She'd been missing for a week. And you didn't even go look for her. John's words sliced like knives. Thomas's face drained of color. His lips trembled. No, no, that's not possible. You're lying. Thomas, Catherine whispered, reaching for his hand, concerned. John's voice turned bitter. You're with Catherine right now, aren't you? Silence. A long, crushing silence. Of course you are, John muttered. Melina's been missing for 7 days. And you've been with Catherine the whole time. Thomas flinched. Then he violently shook Catherine's hand away. His eyes were red. His expression, shocked and panicked, like a child caught doing something wrong. John lowered his voice. Her body's at the funeral home now. The police contacted her family. You should go identify her. Then, after a pause, she had no one else, Thomas. You were all she had. Thomas stood frozen. His tall frame now hunched. Then slowly, he collapsed, curling into himself, unmoving. He murmured the same words, again and again. No, no, it can't be true. It was all he could say. I stood there, watching him break, numb but strangely satisfied. Now that my memory had returned, hatred consumed me. But as the rage passed, it left behind emptiness. Love and hate, both had exhausted me. Even in death, I was tired. And yet, I didn't disappear. Though my soul had grown fainter, I remained tethered to him, able now to drift slightly farther away. I followed him to the funeral home. Thomas stood at the door, stiff with fear. He couldn't bring himself to step inside. Inside, I overheard the staff. It's a miracle they recovered that much of her remains. They had to reassemble her body. I heard she was pregnant. Yeah. Her wrists and hands were crushed. Looks like she tried to protect the baby. Thomas went pale. He nearly collapsed, barely steadying himself against the wall. A staff member noticed him. Are you family? This way, please. He stumbled forward, step by heavy step. Once alone, he stood before the white-covered body, the light casting long shadows across his still figure. His hands were clenched so tightly his nails dug into his palms. Then, he spoke. Softly, to himself. On the way here, I remembered something I never told you. His voice, usually cold and steady, wavered slightly. We were still young. I was out running errands when I saw a boy grab coins from a blind old woman's bowl. You ran straight over and wrestled with him. You were so small, so thin, but you didn't let go until he returned that single 1 yuan coin. I had heard rumors, that you were an orphan, and that you stole. But that day, messy hair, bruised lip, you calmly stood up, put the coin back, and walked away. She couldn't see it. The boy didn't say anything. But I saw. From then on, I started watching you without realizing it. My eyes always followed you. Later, when you were falsely accused of stealing at school, I stood up for you instinctively. I'll never forget how you looked at me that day. Later, you started watching me too. You blushed when our eyes met. You'd get lost in a daze. You were always by my side, at award ceremonies, sports meets, competitions. You handed me water, gave me flowers, smiled at me through everything. And then? Catherine came back. He paused. Then covered his face with his hand, his fingers trembling. Melina. I was the one who noticed you first. You were the one who loved me first. So why did I fall in love with someone else? I watched in silence. I thought I'd grown numb. But somehow, a sharp pain still bloomed in my chest. Yes. Why? I had loved him first. I knew him first. I had tried so hard, loved so well. I was never someone bright or bold. But in front of Thomas, I always tried to be a little son. Warm. Gentle. Only to him. And never again. Melina, when I proposed, I truly wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. Melina, talk to me. Please, just talk to me. Melina. Melina. Wifey. He called my name again and again. No one answered. His voice turned frantic, then hoarse, then silent. You said you'd never leave me. He sounded like a man dragged into the abyss. His shoulders trembled. His bloodshot eyes were wild, filled with panic, regret, and unbearable grief. I stood there quietly, watching him fall apart. Maybe, only now did he finally understand, I was truly gone. After receiving my urn, Thomas locked himself in his room. I could feel myself weakening, my soul fading. I curled up on the floor, exhausted, and drifted into a deep sleep. In the distance, I heard Catherine pounding on the door, her voice choked. Thomas, it's been 3 days. Please, eat something. Even if she's gone, you can't treat yourself like this. She'd be heartbroken if she saw you like this. I opened my eyes, dazed. 3 days had already passed? An hour later, John arrived. He kicked the door open. A wave of cigarette smoke and alcohol filled the air. Sunlight poured in, revealing the man on the floor. Scattered bottles. Crumpled clothes. And my urn. Thomas sat quietly, building the Lego set we never finished. In just a few days, he had become a shadow of himself. Sunken eyes. Unshaven. Thin. Thomas, Catherine's voice trembled. He looked up slowly, like a rusted machine forced to move. His eyes were blank. Lifeless. Why are you still here? He didn't look at her. Just muttered, if Melina comes back, she wouldn't want to see you here. Catherine froze. Then, Thomas turned to her, his tone sharp, resolute. This is Melina's home. Ours. You don't belong here. Tears streamed down Catherine's face, but she couldn't say a word. Leave. He didn't even lift his head again. Just continued placing the Lego pieces, one by one. And this time, nothing could pull him away. If only you'd done this earlier, John finally said. Thomas's face turned ashen. His hands trembled, and the Lego piece he was holding slipped from his fingers. He stared at it, his eyes swimming with anguish. That day, we had a terrible fight. I told her I wanted to bring Catherine home. If I hadn't said that, she wouldn't have asked for a business trip. She wouldn't have. She was taking a shortcut that day. She was rushing back. She was rushing home for my birthday. She wanted to tell me she was pregnant. That was supposed to be my birthday gift. His voice cracked as he clutched his chest, eyes squeezed shut in pain. I brought Catherine home, while Melina wasn't there. He took a shaky breath and tried to resume building the Lego, but his hands wouldn't stop trembling. Every piece he picked up fell from his grip. John? I regret it. I really do. John stood silently for a while before speaking, voice low. They say anyone who breaks a true heart will face retribution eventually. But if the price is her life, isn't that too cruel? Thomas's red-rimmed eyes fluttered. He opened his mouth, but no words came. John sighed deeply. Do you think she'd want to see you like this? No matter what, Thomas, you still have to keep living. A few days later, Thomas insisted on holding a funeral for me. It rained softly. The sky was overcast, heavy with grief. The whole city felt like it was mourning. Thomas didn't bring an umbrella. He stood motionless before my headstone, staring at the black and white photo. Carved into the stone were the words, "Beloved wifey, Melina." One by one, mourners placed white chrysanthemums at my grave. Even after the service ended, Thomas didn't move. Rain streaked his pale face like silent tears. John approached with an umbrella and held it out. You have a heart condition. Even a cold could trigger something worse. Why are you doing this to yourself? Thomas pushed the umbrella away. Then let it kill me. And sure enough, Thomas fell gravely ill. What began as a simple cold worsened into a severe infection. He was hospitalized for over 2 weeks. At night, in the sterile hospital room, he sat in silence, staring out the window at the quiet night. Melina, why haven't you visited me in my dreams? Not even once. You used to nag me to take care of my heart. I've ruined it. Can't you come check on me? After being discharged, still frail, Thomas ended up in the ICU again, this time from drinking and complications. John stood by his bedside, eyes sharp with fury. Then, without warning, he slapped him across the face. If you really want to die, I'll help you myself. I should have slapped you the day you started all this mess. She's gone, and this is how you act? What, are you trying to make yourself feel better? If your grandmother hadn't made me promise to watch over you, I'd have left you to rot. If Melina could see this pathetic, self-indulgent mess you've become, she'd be disgusted. Thomas sat pale and silent, staring into space. Whether or not he truly heard John's words, something shifted in him after that day. He stopped spiraling. Stopped destroying his body. He returned to work. Calmly. Methodically. But something about him had changed. At night, he'd stand on the balcony smoking, the haze softening his already distant features. Then he'd go to the fridge, take out the last bag of dumplings, cook a few, and quietly say to my urn, "Good night." I found I no longer had to stay near him constantly. I was tired, mentally foggy, body heavy. I spent most days sleeping in the room. He'd been unusually busy lately, often coming home late. I didn't know why, until John called. What do you mean you transferred all your company shares to me? I just want to rest for a while, Thomas replied calmly. I heard you made a large donation to an orphanage. Was it, for her? A quiet You could say it's penance. John hesitated, then added, Catherine's ex-husband came back and attacked her. She miscarried. He turned himself in. She's in a coma now, and the doctors say she may never be able to have children again. Thomas's expression didn't change. No flicker of emotion. I'm going to bed, he said, and hung up. Days passed. One night, Thomas lit a cigarette on the balcony as usual. When he returned to the kitchen and saw there were only a few dumplings left in the freezer, he paused. Then, he smiled. A serene, peaceful smile. Almost happy. I frowned. He didn't eat the dumplings. Instead, he went to the mall, alone. He lingered in the baby aisle, asking the clerk detailed questions. Then he bought a few baby clothes. He stopped at the flower stall downstairs and bought a large bouquet of roses. The old lady at the counter lit up. Your girlfriend used to buy flowers here. Haven't seen her in a while, where's she been? Thomas paused. She's on a business trip. The woman smiled. These roses aren't too fresh tonight. Come back tomorrow and I'll get you a better batch. No, ma'am, Thomas replied with a gentle smile. I'm going on a trip tonight too. She blinked, then laughed. Missing your girlfriend, huh? Thomas's smile deepened. His eyes lowered. Yeah. I miss her. I miss her, a lot. At home, Thomas sat at the table and slowly ate the last dumplings, down to the broth. Then he showered, changed into clean clothes, and gently placed the baby clothes and roses on the bed. He stood there for a long time, looking at them. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a bottle of sleeping pills. And a fruit knife. I froze. He unscrewed the cap, poured out the pills, and began swallowing them, one by one. My whole body trembled. I stared at him, horrified. Then he picked up the knife. Calmly, he drew it across his wrist. How dare you? I screamed. Clang. The knife clattered to the floor. Melina. Blood trickled from his wrist. He stared at me, dazed. So it's true. They say when you're dying, you see the one you love most. Melina. I missed you. I clenched down the fury rising in my chest. My voice was icy. Well, I didn't want to see you. His face turned even paler. He stood slowly, staggering, then picked up the baby clothes and roses. These are, for you and the baby. I didn't know if it was a boy or girl, so I got both. I stared at him coldly. We don't need them. He flinched. Still looking down, he whispered, I know you're still mad. I shouldn't have argued with you that day. Catherine, she was just someone I couldn't let go of from the past. But the one I truly loved, was always you. Always. John said those who betray love have to pay the price. So I came to pay it. Melina, I was wrong. Please, forgive me. Each word felt like a blade to the chest. But then I smiled faintly. Do you know what I saw before I died? Thomas looked up, confused. I met his gaze. One post at a time, I saw her post about you holding her hand through hospital visits. Saw you peel shrimp for her. Saw her kiss you while pretending you were asleep. And I saw, you liked it. I died, filled with hatred for you. So, Thomas, how dare you ask me for forgiveness? He swayed. Color drained from his face. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Pain and regret twisted in his eyes. Now you feel it? It wasn't enough. I gave him a smile, small, cruel. Thomas, were the dumplings you ate with Catherine on your birthday tasty? He froze. How do you know? Then his pupils widened. Realization dawned. Terror spread across his face. I stepped forward, voice calm. Because my soul never left. This isn't a dying hallucination. I've been here the whole time, watching you. Thomas stiffened. The despair that overtook him was absolute. His lips trembled. His eyes turned blood red. I watched you kiss her on the couch I bought. Watched you eat the dumplings I made. Watched you tell her secrets that once belonged to us. Watched you play games with her on the console I gave you. Watched you choose her, over and over again. The baby and I died in pain. Alone. And you had no idea. You were busy hugging Catherine, planning how to break up with me, just so you could be with her in the open. I spoke each word slowly, as if carving open his soul. And now, because you've finally figured out who you truly love, you want to stage some romantic tragedy and die to join me? Why should I accept that? Thomas curled up on the floor, arms wrapped around his head. And from his eyes, blood flowed. Warm blood streamed from his eyes, tracing the bridge of his nose, slipping over his chin, and dripping onto the tiny baby clothes. Staining them a deep, furious red. Red with anguish. Red with desperation. Something in Thomas suddenly snapped. He stared at the blood-soaked fabric, then whispered hoarsely, they're dirty, the clothes. The baby clothes, they're dirty. Panicked, he tried to wipe them clean, but the blood from his wrists only smeared more across the delicate fabric. His movements stilled. He trembled, helpless, broken. Then he looked up at me, his eyes hollow and wrecked. Melina, the clothes I bought for the baby, they're ruined. What do I do? My chest tightened so painfully it felt like it might collapse. I closed my eyes. Then I said, Thomas, you don't deserve to die. You don't deserve to join us. You have to live. Live forever. Buried in endless pain. Silence fell. Even his breathing seemed to vanish. I don't know how much time passed. Then, I heard his voice. Choked. Fragile. Barely audible. Okay. And the moment that word left his lips, something inside me broke. Something invisible shattered. And my soul grew light. In the final seconds before everything faded, I seemed to see Thomas reach for the phone, dialing 911. He looked at me, one last time. Deeply. Steadily. The company's shares have all been transferred to John. The rest of my money? I'll donate to the orphanage. Melina. I'll have nothing left. And I'll live. I'll live a long, long time. To atone. And with that, I finally closed my eyes. I was ready. Ready for a new world. I hope that in my next life, I'll have parents who truly love me. A husband who cherishes and respects me. And beautiful, joyful children. But please, don't ever let me meet Thomas again.